My name is Mark, and a few months ago, I would have told you I was the luckiest man alive. I had a stable job at a mid-sized engineering firm, a two-story house in a quiet cul-de-sac just outside Portland, and a wife who, for most of our marriage, I believed was the love of my life. Ashley. She wasn't flashy or loud. She had this calm, warm energy that made you feel like the world was okay, even when it wasn't. She taught English literature at a local college, always reading, always scribbling quotes in the margins of napkins and notebooks. We met at a friend's bonfire party. She was the only one not trying to get drunk or show off. She was sitting by the fire, reading The Bell Jar. I made a stupid joke about it, and instead of rolling her eyes, she laughed. That laugh stuck with me. We got married 3 years later. Nothing fancy, just close friends, some homemade food, and my buddy Greg almost choking on a chicken wing during his toast. But we were happy. For a while. The one thing we couldn't seem to get was a child. We'd been trying for nearly 18 months. At first it was kind of exciting, the whole making a baby part. But as time went on, and the negative tests stacked up, it started to wear on us. On her, especially. She stopped smiling as much, stopped initiating things. She withdrew a little, not dramatically, but enough that I felt it in the space between us on the couch, in the way she sighed when I made plans, in the way she'd avoid looking at the baby aisle when we went shopping. I tried to stay strong for both of us, encouraging, patient, hopeful. And then came the Singapore trip. It was a 10-day academic seminar, some international collaboration for professors. She was selected as one of the faculty representatives. At first, she considered turning it down. "What if this is the month?" she asked one night in bed, curled up next to me. "Then it'll be a really cool story we get to tell one day," I said, kissing her on the forehead. "You can't put your life on pause forever." She smiled, weakly, but she nodded. She left in early March. I remember the morning I dropped her off at the airport. It was still dark out. She wore that oversized beige sweater I always liked, the one that made her look like she was wrapped in clouds. Her hair was tied up messily, no makeup, tired eyes. "I'll bring you something tacky," she said, trying to sound playful. "Like a miniature merlion?" "Exactly. The uglier the better." I hugged her tight, not wanting to let go. I told her I loved her. She called every other day while she was gone, said she was tired from jet lag, the schedule was packed, and she didn't have time to video call, just voice. I didn't think much of it. Why would I? When she came home, she looked different. Not in some dramatic way, but worn out. Her skin was paler, her eyes more guarded. She brought me a dumb plastic figurine of a Singapore skyline that lit up with a switch. Said she found it in an airport shop last minute. "You okay?" I asked as we drove home. "Yeah," she said. "Just tired. The time difference kicked my ass." She slept most of that weekend. We didn't talk much about the trip. I figured she'd open up when she was ready. I didn't want to push. She never really was great with re-entry after travel. The following week, everything felt off. She was quieter, kept to herself. Caught her just staring out the window a couple times when she thought I wasn't looking. Again, I didn't press. I told myself it was jet lag, hormones, stress. I was so damn eager to believe everything was okay. 2.5 weeks after she got back, I came home from work to find her sitting on the kitchen floor. Just sitting there. Legs crossed, back against the cabinets. In her hands, she held a white plastic stick. Her eyes were glassy. For a second, I thought something was wrong. "Ash?" I said cautiously, stepping inside. "What's going on?" She looked up at me, slowly, like her head weighed 100 pounds, and held out the test. 2 pink lines. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. My heart stopped. I knelt down beside her, reached out, and took her hand. "We're pregnant?" I asked, barely able to get the words out. She nodded once, and her lower lip started to tremble. "Oh my God," I whispered. "Oh my God, we did it." I pulled her into my arms and she broke down, crying against my chest. I thought it was joy, relief, release. Now I know better. From that moment on, I was a man possessed, in the best way possible. Every morning, I kissed her belly before heading to work, even when there was barely a bump to kiss. I read books like The Expectant Father, made spreadsheets for baby supplies, watched way too many YouTube videos about stroller durability. Ashley seemed better at first. She smiled more. Let me hold her at night again. We had these little rituals, Sunday pancakes, naming games in the car, trying to guess if it was a boy or girl. She always said she wanted to wait for the surprise. Still, there were moments that didn't sit right. Little things. The kind that you only notice when you're alone and playing every scene back in your head 1,000 times. Like how she didn't want me going with her to her first prenatal appointment. It's just a blood test and paperwork, she said casually. Super boring. I pushed, gently. Told her I wanted to be there for everything. She gave me this tight little smile, the kind that didn't reach her eyes, and said, "Next one, okay? I promise." That became a pattern. Every time an appointment came up, there was some excuse. She'd say it was rescheduled, that the doctor was overbooked, that I didn't need to take time off work. I believed her. Worse, I wanted to believe her. We had our first real argument during her second trimester. It started stupid, as most do. I asked if she'd sent in the hospital registration forms, and she snapped, "Why do you always have to double-check everything I do?" I blinked. I just asked. I didn't mean anything by it. She stormed off, slammed the door to the bathroom, stayed in there for over an hour. When she came out, her eyes were red. She mumbled an apology and said hormones were messing with her, that she was scared, that all of this was overwhelming. I held her, told her we were in it together. God, I meant it. As her belly grew, so did my excitement and my unease. Sometimes I'd wake up in the middle of the night and see her sitting up in bed, just staring at the window. "You okay?" I'd whisper. She'd always say yes, always climb back under the covers, but she never reached for me the way she used to. There was one night, and I think about this all the time now, when I put my hand on her stomach and said, "I hope they get your eyes." She froze, just for a second, but I felt it, the stiffening, the delay, the breath caught in her throat. "Why?" she asked softly. "Because your eyes are beautiful," I said, trying to keep it light. She turned away. That night she said she was too tired to cuddle, rolled to the far edge of the bed and stayed there. I stared at the ceiling for hours. Near the start of the third trimester, we finally went to an appointment together. She couldn't really dodge it anymore. The ultrasound. We sat in the little room with the pastel walls and the baby animal posters, and when the image appeared on the monitor, I felt tears spring into my eyes. That little blur of movement, that heartbeat like a hummingbird's wings, it was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. I looked at her. She was staring at the screen, but there was something hollow in her expression. Not awe, not joy, just silence. Outside in the car, I reached for her hand. "You okay?" She nodded. "You don't seem happy," I said gently. She bit her lip, looked out the window. "I am," she said. "Just scared. It's a big change. I don't want to mess it up." I kissed her knuckles. "We're doing this together. You're not alone." She squeezed my hand in return, but didn't say a word the entire drive home. I ignored the pit forming in my stomach, pushed it down, drowned it with baby books and paint swatches and little dinosaur onesies. I thought, she's just overwhelmed. It'll get better when the baby's here. I had no idea the worst part hadn't even started yet. The night Ashley went into labor, I was half asleep on the couch, watching reruns of Top Chef with a bowl of half-eaten cereal on my chest. She called out from upstairs, not a scream, not a panic, just a sharp intake of breath followed by my name, shaky and urgent. "Mark, I think it's time." I jumped up so fast the cereal flew everywhere. At the hospital, everything was a blur. Bright lights, paperwork, beeping monitors, a nurse asking her to breathe, another checking her vitals. I held her hand the whole time, whispered encouragement, told her she was doing amazing, that I loved her, that our baby was almost here. Hours passed. She barely spoke, just screamed through contractions and stared at the ceiling like she was somewhere else entirely. But I didn't think much of it. I figured she was exhausted, in pain, focused. Then came the pushing. I was beside her, sweaty palms, heart racing. A blur of blue scrubs and sharp commands. The doctor saying, "One more big push, Ashley. You've got this." And then, crying. That shrill, beautiful newborn cry. They lifted the baby up for just a second before taking them over to the heated table across the room to clean and check vitals. I watched, breathless, chest full of something electric and sacred. I saw him, and everything stopped. My son, the child I had waited years for, didn't look like me. Didn't look like Ashley. His skin tone was distinctly darker, not just the flushed pink of a newborn, but a smooth, golden brown hue. His jet black hair clung to his head in soft, straight strands, not wavy like mine, not light like Ashley's. His eyes, even swollen and scrunched shut, were unmistakably almond-shaped. It was subtle, but undeniable. A face that, biologically, couldn't have come from the two of us. It hit me like an open palm to the chest. A chill moved down my spine, through my fingertips, into the soles of my feet. I looked at Ashley. She wasn't looking at the baby. She was staring at the ceiling, tears slipping quietly down the sides of her face. No smile, no joy, just silence. I didn't say anything right away. I couldn't. My mouth was dry, my heart pounding so hard I could barely hear. The nurse brought him over, swaddled in blue, gently placed him in my arms. He was so small, so real, so innocent, and not mine. Back at the recovery room, Ashley was lying in the bed, looking exhausted, pale, and distant. I stood there, holding the child, unsure what the hell I was even supposed to feel. "Ash," I finally said, barely above a whisper. "Can we talk?" She didn't answer. He's beautiful," I added, trying not to sound broken. "But he doesn't look like me, at all." She closed her eyes. "Ashley." Still nothing. "Say something." Her voice, when it finally came, was cracked and thin. "I didn't mean for this to happen." My legs almost gave out. I sat down hard in the chair next to the bed, still holding the child, the weight of him now unbearably heavy. "Who?" I asked. I was surprised how calm my voice was. "When?" She turned her head away. "Ashley." "When?" "Singapore." That one word detonated something in my chest. A quiet explosion. No flames, just the sound of everything cracking beneath the surface. "That trip?" I said. "The seminar?" She nodded. Tears rolled down her cheeks. "It was one night," she whispered. "I was drunk. It was stupid. It didn't mean anything. I didn't know. And then you came home and told me we were pregnant." She nodded again, slowly. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because my body didn't know what else to do. It came out dry and sharp, like a cough. "You lied to me for 9 months. I didn't know what to do," she said, now crying openly. "I wanted to tell you, but every time I looked at you, I couldn't. You were so happy. You wanted this so badly. I thought maybe we could just pretend. That maybe he'd come out looking like me." I finished, hollow. She sobbed. I sat there for a long time, silent, holding a baby that wasn't mine, beside a woman I no longer recognized. We stayed in the hospital for 2 days, 2 days of pretending. The nurses smiled, cooed, brought in flowers and offered congratulations. One of them said our son had such striking features. Another asked which side of the family he got that beautiful skin tone from. I didn't answer. Ashley just nodded quietly, smiled that thin, exhausted smile of someone walking across a tightrope in a storm. We named him Lucas, a name we'd picked out together months ago. A name I'd once written in Sharpie across a onesie in the middle of a store aisle like a giddy idiot. Now it felt foreign, borrowed, like everything else in that room. At night, I couldn't sleep. I sat in chair with Lucas in my arms, staring down at his peaceful little face. He was innocent, blameless. He didn't ask for any of this. And yet, holding him, looking at his features, his soft skin, his dark lashes, was like staring into the face of a man I'd never met. A man who had touched my wife, who had left part of himself behind. I thought about that trip again. Singapore. The way Ashley had avoided video calls. The weird excuses. The vacant expression when she came home. All the signs I'd missed or ignored. The morning we were discharged, Ashley tried to act normal. She signed paperwork. I watched her from the driver's seat. Watched the woman I had married play house in a life she'd shattered. When we got home, she went straight to the nursery, adjusting blankets, checking the baby monitor, pretending not to notice that I hadn't said a single word since we left the hospital. Finally, in the quiet of that room, with the mobile spinning slowly above the crib, I spoke. "You plan to tell me eventually?" She froze. "Or were you just going to ride this lie all the way to kindergarten?" Ashley didn't turn around. "I didn't know how. You had 9 months to figure it out. I thought maybe it wouldn't matter." I let out a short, sharp breath, something between a laugh and a grunt. "It matters, Ashley." She finally turned to face me, her face pale and drawn. "He's still my son," she said. "No," I replied. "He's a son. He's not mine. You took that choice away from me." She started crying again, but I couldn't bring myself to comfort her this time. I felt numb, detached. Not because I didn't care, but because I cared too much, for too long, and she knew it. She used it. Later that night, when the house was quiet and Lucas finally slept, I sat alone on the edge of the bed and stared at the floor for what felt like hours. Ashley came in, stood in the doorway, wrapped in a robe. Her eyes were swollen from crying. "Are you going to leave?" she asked. I didn't answer right away, because the truth was, I didn't know yet. I didn't leave, not right away. I wish I could say I had the strength to walk out that night, slam the door, never look back. But the truth is, I stayed. I stayed for Lucas. Or maybe because the numbness hadn't worn off yet, and I didn't trust myself to make a decision I wouldn't regret later. The next few days blurred together. I took paternity leave. That was the plan after all. Only now I wasn't spending it decorating a memory book or playing lullabies. I was staring at the ceiling while a newborn cried in the other room. Ashley moved like a shadow around me, silent, careful, always trying to avoid eye contact. She offered to cook. I declined. She asked if I wanted to hold Lucas. I nodded, but never for long. I didn't leave, not right away. I wish I could say I had the strength to walk out that night, slam the door, never look back. But the truth is, I stayed. I stayed for Lucas. Or maybe because the numbness hadn't worn off yet, and I didn't trust myself to make a decision I wouldn't regret later. The next few days blurred together. I took paternity leave. That was the plan after all. Only now I wasn't spending it decorating a memory book or playing lullabies. I was staring at the ceiling while a newborn cried in the other room. Ashley moved like a shadow around me, silent, careful, always trying to avoid eye contact. She offered to cook. I declined. She asked if I wanted to hold Lucas. I nodded, but never for long. "Did you love him?" I asked. She finally looked at me. Her eyes were tired, deeper than just sleepless nights. "No," she said. "It wasn't love. It wasn't anything. I was lonely. I was angry. I thought maybe I wasn't good enough for you." I shook my head. "So, you slept with someone else to fix that?" "I made a mistake." "You made a choice." Her lips trembled. I turned and walked out before she could say anything else. That afternoon, I started sleeping in the guest room. No conversation, no declaration. Just a pillow under my arm and a closed door. She didn't knock. I began to plan, quietly, deliberately. I backed up my files, checked my savings, found an apartment listing 2 neighborhoods over. I didn't rush, but inside, I already knew. This wasn't my home anymore. She wasn't my wife, and Lucas wasn't my son. It was a Tuesday when I finally told her. No big moment, no blow-up. Just a quiet morning, sunlight creeping across the hardwood floor like nothing had happened, like the world was still intact. Ashley was in the nursery, humming to Lucas, rocking him gently. I stood in the doorway for a moment watching. She looked up. Her smile was cautious. "He just fell asleep," she whispered. I nodded. Silence stretched between us like a tightrope. Then I said it. "I'm leaving." Her smile fell, completely. Her mouth opened slightly, but no words came. I didn't give her time to respond. "I found a place. It's not far. I'll move out this weekend." She just stared at me, like the words were in a language she didn't understand. "Mark," she finally breathed. "Please don't—" "Don't what?" I said, voice flat. "Don't leave the woman who lied to my face every single day for 9 months? Who let me paint a nursery, buy onesies, read bedtime stories to a stomach carrying another man's child?" "I didn't know what to do," she whispered, already crying. "You had choices," I said. "You chose to lie. Every day." I didn't yell. That's what surprised her most, I think. I wasn't angry anymore. Just done. "I could have forgiven the cheating," I continued. "Maybe, if you'd told me then, if you'd been honest. But you let me dream about a child that was never mine. You let me fall in love with the idea of a family that didn't exist." Ashley covered her mouth with her hand, like she was trying to keep the sobs in. Lucas stirred in her arms. "He's still just a baby," she choked. He needs someone who loves him fully. I can't give him that. I wish I could, but I can't. Every time I look at him, I see what you did." She looked like I'd slapped her. I didn't mean it to be cruel. I meant it to be honest. That weekend, I packed in silence. No fights, no begging, just cardboard boxes, folded clothes, toothbrush, charger. As I zipped the last bag, I turned to see her standing in the hallway, holding Lucas. "You'll come back," she said, voice shaking. "You'll miss us." I met her eyes. "No," I said quietly. "You'll miss the man who would have done anything for you. He doesn't live here anymore." I walked out the front door into a sharp, cold wind. It felt good, real, like breathing clean air after months in a smoke-filled room. Behind me, the door clicked shut. I didn't look back. It's been 5 months. I live in a small 1-bedroom apartment now. No nursery, no crib. Just me, a coffee maker, and a quiet I didn't know I needed. The first few weeks were brutal. Waking up to silence instead of crying. Forgetting I didn't need to check a baby monitor. Instincts still fired, but there was no target. Just empty space. I started therapy. At first, I didn't talk much, just sat there. The therapist waited. Eventually, I said the words out loud. "I loved a child who was never mine." That broke something in me, but it also started to rebuild something else. Ashley sends me photos of Lucas sometimes. I don't ask for them. She just sends them. A blurry shot of him giggling in a high chair, a tiny hand reaching for bubbles, his first laugh. He's beautiful, but I don't reply. Not because I'm bitter, because I don't belong in that story anymore. People ask if I'll ever forgive her. Maybe forgiveness is too big a word for something that dug so deep. But I've let go of the anger. That's something. That's enough. Last week I drove past our old street, just for a second, just to see. The house was the same, porch light still on, curtains drawn. But I didn't stop. I didn't need to. Because that version of me, the man with the onesies and the blind hope, he stayed behind that door. And I'm learning how to live without him,